Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Matt from Florida Best Quote. I've been an agent for almost 7 years now with Florida Best Quote for almost four. Love insurance, love doing it. Happy to help be here today, answer any questions you have, kind of go over these topics. I look forward to working with all of you guys.
And I know a lot of times we have Jason or Lindsay on. Just so everybody knows, Matt's my guy. He's my agent there. I'm not sure these years kind of smear together with kids, but we've been working together for a few years now,
Yeah, at
three, four
least
years.
three. Yeah, I think three for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yep. So he's my go-to guy. So we wanted to have him on. One of the topics was to hit on like I think deductibles, like if somebody needs a cheaper policy, for example, for qualifying, do they have the ability to swap it out later, potentially, or like if somebody gets like a policy that allows for a roof to go on after the closing, but it's more expensive. Can you swap it out like as soon as that new roof goes on, or do you have to wait 90 days? You know,
Yeah.
maybe just touch on some of that and the government shutdown.
Yeah, so as far as some of that, okay, so as far as like if you need to kind of let's say strip down a policy to get it to meet DTI, right? One of the big things that I personally recommend doing is changing things like personal property, maybe excluding personal property, things that we can come back later and change. Deductibles are something we can't change later. So even though deductibles are a good way of lowering the rate, depending how far we need to get down, a lot of times I'll recommend excluding other structures, excluding contents, maybe lowering coverages otherwhere, because most carriers, almost all the carriers, will let us come back later and add contents, add that stuff on after the closing. Deductibles can never be changed midterm, very rarely.
Okay.
Yeah, so depending on how much we need to get it down, we can always lower all of those. We can, adjust all of those.
And let me preface, we're not putting somebody like, in a bad situation where they're
Right.
not going to be able to afford it later. A lot of these circumstances, maybe the spouse, their credit score isn't quite as high, so they're not on the
Right.
loan. We can't count their income. We're not putting people in bad situations by lowering their premium.
Right. And yeah, and it's never lowering the dwelling or anything like that. It's basically just saying, hey, your contents are excluded for a week or, however long till your closing gets through, and then you can call us back. We can add it on. And it's a good way to save a couple $100. It's never anything crazy. So but yeah, I agree. There's definitely coverages on there that we can lower a little bit that won't leave them, in a bad spot. So
I mean, it is pretty wild when somebody like when it comes down to sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70 per month
yeah,
for
yeah,
somebody to
yeah,
qualify for the loan. So but
right.
it does happen. Unfortunately, not all the time, but it does happen. So it's nice to have somebody creative on the insurance side to help us out. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably one of my strongest suits is when we got to meet the number, there's a lot of ways to get creative where you're not stripping down too much anything important, but you're able to get it down to where they need it just for now. So there's lots of different options there.
Awesome. And then like a question that's come up somewhat frequently, a repair maybe being done after the closing. You see it more than I do. Electrical, roof, things of that nature, where we need maybe a temporary policy in place. How does that kind of work?
Yeah, and now this actually, in my opinion, this is my strongest suit in all of insurance. I think, in my opinion, because so when it comes to repairs, every carrier is different. Some will allow a little, some will give you a couple days, some will give you 30 days, some are very strict, has to be done at the time of closing. So it's really going to depend on the carrier that comes back and what options we have. If the repair is minor, like we're talking double tap, something that can get done super easy, 9 times out of 10, I can reach out to an underwriter, and we can get them to give us a 30-day or give us an extension. In fact, there's more carriers that will allow that than not. And I think that's kind of a misconception that goes around. I hear from a lot of other agencies that they don't have a perfect 4 point, they can't do it. And that's just not the case. There's so many carriers that if it's something minor, now if we're talking about something like plumbing that's let's say galvanized plumbing that they just don't accept, but they're going to replace the plumbing after. Now carriers might not give you any leeway on that, but there's most of the time on the 4 point, we see minor things. We see like water heaters that are going to be replaced after closing, things like that. And most carriers, a lot of the carriers that I work with, will, if you reach out to them, they will give you a break on that. And they'll give you 7 days. Most of them will give you 30. And all you have to just show is proof of replacement within 30 days for repair.
And in the event that they do have to go with a carrier that is more expensive, Some of them, what you have to keep in place for 90 days.
It'll
Is that
depend on the
correct?
car. Yeah, it'll depend on the carrier. So there's a couple carriers that have a 25% earned premium, which means for 3 months, you basically just got to stay with them because you're paid for that 3 months and there's no way to refund them. Now there are when it comes to roofs, there are several carriers I have as well that will give you those 30 days as long as you have a contract. And most of them do have that 3 month locked in rate. So even though they're getting a brand new roof and let's say 30 days after closing the roof's replaced, you're kind of with that carrier for 3 months, but then you're free to then go and reshop it and find a better rate based off your new roof.
Well, some of them
Very,
give you a credit for having a new roof. Assuming that it's going on within 30 days after the closing, will they ever give you a credit? Assuming that that new roof is going on within 30 days after the closing, or does the roof have to go on, get a new wind mitigation, turn that in for them to give the roof credits?
I do. I have two carriers that I love. They're my go-to options. If there's a roof that's being replaced after closing, they not only will give you the 30 days, they'll let us bind it with the new roof if we have a contract. So you're getting the credit already. If that's huge. I mean, they're my go-to carriers when there's roofs that are done after closing. And they'll get, like I said, you have the brand new roof credit. You're good. 9 times out of 10, we don't even have to reshop it because you're already getting a really good rate with them and you're already getting the credit.
Awesome. I do want to
Yeah.
give you a shout out. I got my homeowner's insurance renewal in the mail, and it went down from
Frontline.
last year to this year. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Frontline. It went down
Yeah.
from 2,800 a year to less than 2,000 a year.
Wow. Wow. That's a big drop too. Wow.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Frontline has been probably the best carrier in Florida over the last few months for sure, as far as rates go. And they've had two rate decreases over the last few months, which is unheard of the last couple of years. So yeah, they've been awesome.
That's awesome. So for any agents that are on the phone here or any loan officers, like if they get a hold of you, what type of home will qualify for Frontline? Does it typically have to be built after 2000? Do you want a roof within 5 years? How does it work? Because they usually are the lowest that I see.
Yeah, and Frontline has a very open guidelines. It's almost pretty crazy. I mean, I wrote a 1956 home with them just yesterday. So they'll take older homes. What they're looking for is obviously no issues. That 4 points clean. Now they're one that will take exceptions to as long as it's something minor. But roof has to be less than 15 years old on shingle. So that's one of the caveats. Some carriers will go to 20 now that they only go 15 years. But the big thing with Frontline and the thing that is always the number one thing we look for is water heater. They're very, very strict on the water heater. It's got to be less than 15 years old, and they don't allow us to change it after closing typically. They want that done before. But other than the water heater, super lax and super open on the guidelines.
Excellent. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any questions on what Matt covered so far before he gets into the government shutdown, how that affects things, and flood insurance?
Hey, even if the water heater's in the garage and the garage is a step down from the house, they still going to call that?
Yeah, so the water heater is the one big thing with them. Now, tankless water heater, it can be 20, 30 years old. As long as it was in good working condition, they're okay. But if it's in the garage, yeah, they're still pretty strict on 15 years. Now, they have had they if it's going to be changed literally like days after closing, we can typically get that through. But we've got to have it days after closing, and it's got to be something that I reach out and kind of get, can you help me out on this one? But yeah, typically they want them done right at closing, no matter where the water heater is. Very strict on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you ever have one, send it over to me because I've been able to get so many through just having good relationships with the underwriters at Frontline and other carriers. So
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
good news.